Welcome to Holyrude, the Tony Soprano of political podcasts. Season 3, Episode 7, with a wee mid-season break there. Hope you are all fine and well. We have plenty to talk about. And today I'm your host, as ever. I'm transmitting from the Blantyre Free State. It's David McClement. I said that all backwards. Sorry, it's been a few weeks. I'm out of practice. I'm sharpening up. Promise I'll get better. And joining me is my eternal comrade. She's here every week, on the dot, always reliable. That's no me having a dig at Brian. Is the digital Michelangelo of Mulgai, Deborah Torrance. Deborah, how are you? Good to see you after a few weeks off.
Hello, how you doing? Nice to see you.
Smashing. I'm loving the good weather, soaking it up, feeling all bright and breezy. Also joining me is a guest this week, standing in for Brian, who's still jet setting. I believe he was last spotted in Spain. We'll keep you updated. We were red comrades and now we're green comrades. Leith's favourite son, it's Scott McDonald. How are you, Scott? Welcome to the show.
Peace, love. I'm doing all right. I'm sweltering. Can't be dealing with the heat.
I've got a kind of dilemma at the moment. At night, it's too hot to keep the windows shut, but when I leave them open, there's temporary traffic lights right outside my house. So we end up with cars sitting idling, and I get woke up at like 1 o'clock in the morning. I thought I'd rolled there the TV remote, and somebody was like blasting out music at their car right outside my window. It was like a grumpy old man ready to start chatting and shouting and gesticulating. But unlike
old man shouts at cars.
Well, I was going to complain. I was going to compare myself to a certain education minister, but I managed to conduct myself with a bit of decorum.
And it was nice to hear you smile. Dream a dream, 'cause you'll never die. The stars will never overtake the sky. Life has its turns and it takes a while. And it was nice to hear you smile.
First up, what I thought we'd talk about is we have a date for Indyref2, and the kind of overall strategy has been revealed by Nicola Sturgeon. So she's proposed to hold the next Scottish independence referendum on 19th October 2023. And she explained a three-stage process. The first one is to request a Section 30 order, already rejected. The second one is to ask the UK Supreme Court to adjudicate and whether the Scottish Parliament is able to legislate for a referendum without a Section 30. And if that is also unsuccessful, she says she will turn the next UK general election into a de facto referendum. So, Scott, thoughts, what's your feelings? There's another Indyref2. It makes it seem a bit more real and solid. We've been talking about it literally since the day after the first Indyref, and now it looks as if it might happen.
It's kind of the setting of a date is kind of the most important. Is kind of a really important thing. I mean, it's the most, the strongest commitment from the Scottish government to a new referendum on independence that has been for 8 years. It's kind of like the crises that currently engage the British state, the economic, social, and ecological, are profound, deep, and are continuing to do so. I mean, it depends really what we want to do in this situation. It's kind of activated a lot of the local groups again, around my neck of the woods, Yes and the Northern Leaf, for getting our act together and getting ready to get stuck into the preparations and the work therein. What remains to be seen is how this three-pronged tactic is going to play out. I mean, ultimately, we're binding ourselves effectively to a purely constitutionalist approach to a referendum. So I mean, that's countermanded by a state which slides deeper into scary right-wing populist authoritarianism. I don't want to use the F word, but it's kind of like you can see areas of the state, what have you, being wielded against citizenry, and
it's funny. As long as
to divide democracy.
I've just got to say, as long as I can remember in left-wing politics, everybody's always been really quick to use the fascist word, and then now that it's actually becoming kind of real, everybody's like hesitating a wee bit more.
I mean, when it comes to fascism in general, I'm not kind of terribly prescriptive when it comes to calling something out as it is. But if it walks like a fascist, if it talks like a fascist, if it acts like a fascist, you use it like a duck. If it walks, talks, and squawks like a duck, then it's probably a duck.
I'm feeling a wee bit nervous now that it seems awful real. Like it's like.
What are you guys doing? What are you guys doing in preparation for a referendum? Are you bootstrapping anything up again?
Well, we'll keep this going and obviously maybe try to crank it up a bit. I'll have a wee look to see if Yes Blantyre, it was sort of in the ice. I don't really know what stage it's at. I'll certainly make inquiries to see if that's getting going again or if there might be brand new groups will spring up. I don't know. Deborah, how are you feeling about it?
We had a meeting, all the sister branches at the convener last week. It was quite good. We were having a wee chat about just strategy and doing the boring stuff.
Is this Yes or SNP?
This was SNP. Our Yes group sort of dissipated into very specialist groups. Like we've got the Yes for pensioners for Yes. They have still been active this whole time. We've got a sort of broader Eastern Bartonshire Campsies sort of Yes, but that's got a bit more environmental focus, which I'm against. But I think we've still kept contact, so it'll be pretty easy to pull everybody back in, I think, and get going. But just from the SNP branch level, we were just getting quite prepared about, how many people we can get out dropping leaflets on the doors and who we can call in short notice and stuff. I think strategically, the whole approach to this independence referendum has to be completely different. And I think that's why Nicola Sturgeon's went down declaring this is the day we're going to have it and this is how we're going to get it. I think it was quite smart going to the Supreme Court. I thought that was quite an interesting tactic. I spoke to a few people about it, and there seemed to be a lot of sort of division on what the outcome will be. A lot of people were pretty much, it's the establishment, they're going to go with the UK. And then there was a few other lawyery type people who were talking about the specifics, which was interesting. This is a shout out to a tweet I made, by the way, in our hiatus, where I said a pretty generic thing about how there was a precedent already. And there's a political precedent. I can't speak because the heat is actually giving me some form of heat stroke, and I don't mean that as in I've had a wee bit too much sun. I mean my body is incapable of regulating my temperature. So if I go all slurry, it is worrying. It's just my MS. If I go all slurry and that, please bear with me. I'm no sitting whiskey or nothing. It's just the heat is melting me from the inside out. The Supreme Court thing, what do you think? What's your opinions on it? Because neither of you commented on my tweet. I was very disappointed.
I didn't see the tweet, but
Sorry, you were on holiday.
For some of the things I saw, I was kind of expecting to come back. I think there was something they adjudicated on to do with the Welsh Assembly recently. That it's maybe not a direct comparison, but certainly the people that were giving opinions that I saw seem to think it was a good indicator that they would probably reject the Scottish case for being able to legislate. It certainly seemed to take the kind of political commentary at. I've never said that phrase before. Seemed to take them by surprise. Like that seemed to kind of wrong foot them a wee bit. They didn't expect her to come out with that. If anything, it again demonstrates that we're jumping through the right hoops and going through a process. And it keeps it going, whereas as for a Section 30, they immediately just come back and say no, and it's kind of like, well, is that it finished? Where are we going now? At least it prolongs the process and maybe makes it seem a less radical step to go straight to the, general election thing, which that's the bit I'm not too sure about.
I hear you. I mean, yes, there are reasons to be pretty bloody sceptical about the UK Supreme Court ruling in favour of a Scotland's democratic right to self-determination for next year. Not least, I mean, it's kind of like we've seen the Supreme Court overrule Holyrude on 2 occasions in the past couple of years. One enshrining the rights of the child, as I understand it, within Holyrude's competency, and it was ruled that no, you can't do that. But that shouldn't stop the Scottish Government from finding a way to make this happen. And like you, I'm kind of like, I'm a little bit sceptical when it comes to the next step. Once if the Supreme Court rejects our claim of right, so to speak, are we really just is it really just going to boil down to another SNP landslide as the next step? And from there, what's next? Really, honestly, we've had huge landslides since 2015, and nothing's come of it. But then again, it's never really been politically tested as a de facto referendum on independence. So what is it? Is it just, we're just going to be turned to stone again, or the British state is just going to? I mean, you've heard Sir Keir Starmer earlier on saying there can be no legal way of having a second referendum when he's prime minister, and the Tories that are queuing up for Boris Johnson's job have been equally a bit more coy about it, but they're going to be staunch defenders of the union as well. So what's next is the ultimate question.
The general election idea, the reason I'm really kind of worried about that is, I mean, they've set the bar. They've said it's not just winning, all 50 odd seats. It's to do with, they would need to get more than 50% of the vote. My trouble with that is the unionist side and unionist parties will just say, will deny that's what it is. And if the SNP, or whether it's got SNP, I don't know if they're going to run as yes candidates or something like that. But however it works, if we get 49.9% of the vote, they'll say, there you go, you lost. But if we get 55% of the vote, they'll say it's not a referendum. So I feel as if we're setting ourselves up almost for a referendum that we can only lose, because if we win it, they'll not recognise. They'll refuse to recognise that's what it is. And if we fall short, they will jump on it and claim that we've had a second referendum, and that'll be the story ended for 40 years.
That's why I kind of naively, maybe, because I'm not very legally minded, but I feel that the UK, if anything, is based in bureaucracy, right? So if we go down all the proper avenues, we find, or if we try and, what's the word? Exhaust, yeah. If we exhaust every possible bureaucratic avenue for this, and we still come up against the wall, then in the end, we're just proving our point about the democratic deficit. Like, what say does Scotland really have? That we don't even have the power to do this if we go down every single avenue. And that's why I think that going to the Supreme Court was quite smart. Like, as you say, it threw a lot of people off. Or say, what is this about? I want to hope that the judges will look at this as they're supposed to, from a sort of non-partisan point of view. I mean, I know that's really hopeful. And yes, they're always going to look at it from a British perspective, but if they still have to acknowledge the powers of devolution, and really all they're asking is this within the Scottish Government's remit? And I don't see, like, if the Scottish Government's arguing, well, all referendums are just consultations anyway, like the Brexit referendum, it doesn't necessarily have to result in policy change, then I think that's a fair argument. Is it not?
Yeah,
am I being too hopeful and optimistic?
My concern is that the judges will look at it really, really narrowly, and they're legal judges, so they'll look at it in a very narrow legal sense, and they'll just look at it and say, no, it by the legal reading, it falls outside what is defined in the Scotland Act. I think our best hope is that they would look at it a bit more broadly in terms of, democracy, in terms of, of course, like a country has a right to decide things, and they decide it through a referendum. I feel that'll not be the case, because I don't think democracy's a big deal to British judges.
It's one of the things you were saying there before, Debs, about if the UK government closes or ignores every legal or democratic mechanism to which one can have a second referendum on independence, it means that it's more that independence can only really be achieved through mass action. And are we there yet? I mean, really, as we can turn out 100,000 people on the streets of Glasgow for all under one banner kind of thing. But when it comes to extra legal means of achieving self-determination, I'm not sure that we've got that kind of institutional means yet. Of like the poll tax revolt was pretty much an extra legal means of resistance.
Mm-hmm.
Have we got that yet? You think?
Well, you look at in Catalonia, the sort of the masses they take out in demonstrations and stuff, and you just think I can't see us turning out that kind of numbers, like just these masses and seas of people in the streets. And I think a lot of that is just cultural as well. I think most people aren't really used to going out and marching for things and demonstrating. I've always said I think the best way is a more focused sort of civil disobedience based around Westminster with the SNP MPs. It's just to, disrupt things there enough that they just
big enough in there.
It's like, well, the principle is if you won't let us have a referendum, we'll make your parliament ungovernable through whatever means they can do. I'm sure there's procedural things that they could do, forcing votes constantly and things that probably don't need votes. And it's Westminster, that's another 20 minutes to the day, and even take it further, like, unplug the Wi-Fi and stick glue in the locks, just anything to cause disruption.
Chain yourself to the front doors, like and stuff.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I think most MPs in Westminster, most English MPs, I think, don't probably care about whether Scotland's independent or not. I think there's a minority of them are hardcore ideological unionists.
Who wants to be the Prime Minister that lost Scotland? Who wants to be that Prime Minister? I mean, David Cameron was quietly bricking it at the end, you could see.
That's true, but I don't think that. I think that's certainly would be a consideration for whoever the Prime Minister is, but for backbenchers who are more interested in their own constituency and their own pet projects and legislation, I think they'll get so upset. I think they'll come to the attitude of just give them their bloody independence referendum so we can go on with doing what we're elected for. So
just to summarise this first topic, I'm wanting to go down the bureaucratic route. You're wanting to go down the civil disobedience by SNP MPs, David, and Scott just wants a mass march of every Scottish human.
Mass action.
Mass action. I thought it was.
Let's be clear. This can encompass a broad range of political and social means. I mean, we've seen it before in various other means, like the poll tax, and also the demand for a Scottish Parliament in the first place. It became institutional in Scottish society, and there was Scotland United, when John Major won the largest number of Tory votes ever in 1992, there was an immediately bringing together who's the guy again, the first minister, the guy with the glasses, Donald Dewar and George Galloway, and pretty much all the trade unions and who's the other first minister? It was
Henry McLeish,
Jack McConnell, and all the various organisations realised that there's a serious democratic deficit to deal with here, and at the moment I'm not sure if we've got that. I mean, we've got the STUC right now agrees that the right of self-determination, but they don't yet agree on independence as the eventual destination. So, as a mass action, I mean, how would you? That's an open question. What would how the hell would you pull that about? And actually get to realise that the status quo is intolerable, and we should be open to deciding on the future the way we see fit.
I think that's going to determine a lot of the conversation around independence. Like, what is the UK? What is it going to be? Who's going to be Prime Minister?
Where's it going?
And I think the F word is very apt, to be honest. Fucking useless, but also quite fascist.
Well, I think we could probably talk about this all night, but we'll need to move on. We'll talk about our next subject. A new education minister has been criticised after appearing to make a rude gesture while entering Downing Street. Andrea Jenkins was filmed making the gesture with her hand as she walked through the gates of Downing Street She was appointed to the role of Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State at the Department of Education on Friday in a reshuffle by the Prime Minister. She later released a very poorly worded statement in which she tried to justify her actions and refused to apologise. I take it we all saw this. There was actually two videos. I don't know if you saw both of them. There was the first one that was more publicised that I saw, where giving the crowd the finger. The second one, she looked raging. Like, she looked far more angry than anybody in the crowd, and she was multiple times walking, just doing the kind of get it up you gesture. I think probably they publicised the first one because it's the more dignified one, believe it or not. So, Deborah, what were you thinking when you saw that?
I thought it was very uncouth, to be honest. I didn't know who she was at first. I thought maybe she was like a staffer or something. Maybe she was just having a bad day. But she's the new what did you call her? Under-Secretary of...
Hang on a minute. It's the Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State at the Department of Education.
What's the low-hanging fruit, isn't it?
I know, but what teacher hasn't flipped the bird? A bunch of rowdy young folk. I mean, I don't know how young the dress pack were, but I can imagine it wasn't anything beyond what's been happening outside Parliament for the past few days. Maybe it's a sign that she can't deal with the pressure. I mean, he flipped the bird and all. Like, just call it what it is, sting up the finger. I don't know why they keep Americanising everything.
Because it sounds less terrible.
Yeah, I don't know. I've seen a few commentators saying, "Oh, it's good to have real people in Parliament." And have you seen that sort of chat, that trying to humanise her? I don't buy it. She's still a fucking Tory.
I mean, it's just I don't want to clutch my pearls at this kind of stuff. I mean, it's kind of like it shows the measure of the person to my mind. You know, like one of the things that you do not do, or as an institute of the British state, is show outright absolute contempt to people that are there to see the machinations of Britain. It's weird.
I mean, I think it shows you a lot about the degradation of the political culture generally.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't imagine going back to the 90s, and there was a lot of horrors in the sort of tail end of the Thatcher era, and a lot of horrors in the Major government. But even when Michael Portillo pre sort of
don't forget Prescott punched that guy.
That's true. That seemed a wee bit less. That didn't seem as bad somehow. I mean, that did seem like, and that was like a reactionary thing. And I didn't defend him at the time, and I'm not defending him now. But at least you could kind of see how somebody could react in a spur of a moment. She was just after heat, like just raging, like running, fucking gesturing, and she just looked like a Wayne, like a fucking angry teenager.
I'm surprised there's no TikToks that have dubbed over some of those sort of angry white women in America videos with the sticking up the fit. Like that was very much the sort of attitude I got. Like I didn't really know what was going on, so I was just watching it with the sound off, and then I was it's down and straight out someone. Like it just kept escalating. Like what the fuck is going on? It was weird. It was very childish as well. Like if that was a reaction, and she's going to be the head of the head teachers.
Did either of you read her statement?
It really wasn't an apology, was it?
I know she was.
It was
like she was explaining what she was saying, justifying it, but it was just really, again, the fact that it's the Department of Education, just as the cherry on top with a shit sandwich. Why would you put a cherry in a shit sandwich? I don't know. But
to make it look nice for Instagram.
Grammatically and stuff, it was just really poorly written. If my 9-year-old had written that, I would you could do a wee bit better there. Like, and this is somebody who's in charge of, aspects of the whole education system. It's that is very thick of it, definitely.
I'm more worried about what they're going to get up to in government than I do what they're going to do giving them the finger, then somebody getting the finger. They're going to be a bunch of fucking horrors. They
have done and will do worse than this, but we'll move on to our next topic. But before that, a word from our sponsor.
Our sponsor this week is Sense of Nature Pet Service, based in central Scotland. Sense of Nature gives you a hands-on, personalised experience with a variety of exciting creatures, from snakes and skunks to tarantulas and turtles. Sense of Nature has something for everyone. They offer sensory sessions, one-to-one and group sessions, educational encounters for children of all ages, and they are available for private events upon inquiry. Animal welfare is at the forefront of everything they do, and if appropriate, a risk assessment can be carried out at no additional cost prior to your booking. To get 5% off your next booking with Sense of Nature, quote Holyrude Ungagged 5 at time of booking. To contact Sense of Nature, you can do so by email on sense.of.natureinquiries@outlook.com. You can also find them on most social media platforms by searching for Sense of Nature.
Welcome back. Well, it's finally happened. We've been waiting for it for what seems like forever, but Boris Johnson has resigned as Tory leader, but not yet Prime Minister. The Partygate scandal and a widespread sense of dissatisfaction led to a confidence vote in his leadership amongst Conservative MPs last month, which he narrowly survived. Reservations this month over the hiring of an alleged sexual predator as a government deputy chief whip led to mass resignations from the government and to Johnson resigning as party leader. He remains in office as caretaker Prime Minister pending a leadership election. He's been the Prime Minister for 2 years and, at time of recording, 352 days. His caretaker period will likely mean that he'll manage to surpass Theresa May and James Callaghan in terms of times in office. So, Scott, sorry to see Boris go. What's your thoughts?
Good riddance. He's not actually gone yet, so let's not count our chickens. In his quote unquote resignation speech, he had no clear indication of resigning. He's going to carry on being Prime Minister until leaving the autumn. And, it's weird. What's kind of the speed at which it all happened was kind of like if you're following along with it for the day. Over 50 odds of his government resigned. One after the other, after the other, after the other. It was like watching Jeremy Corbyn's.
I think what to keep up with.
It was. It was kind of like. What's it? And then the one who didn't actually resign. What's it? Michael Gove got the heave ho. We're absolutely not going to miss Boris Johnson. He's the worst Prime Minister we've had in my lifetime. And is he going to be the worst Prime Minister so far? No. If you have a look at these bloody people that are coming up next.
We are in a downward trend.
It's kind of scary. We all didn't like Theresa May. We didn't like David Cameron. We didn't like. It's kind of like, is Britain incapable of electing a decent human being as Prime Minister? Somebody that you actually think. We never really got a chance to vote for Gordon Brown, who actually looked like he would lose some sleep over the NHS being underfunded kind of stuff. What
do you think Boris's legacy will be?
The defenestration of Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah,
that's going to be that's ultimately his only real achievement in office, political or otherwise.
Well, legacy can be bad as well as good. I feel with Boris it is likely to be more leaning towards the negative. Deborah, what were you feeling when it finally happened? Were you surprised?
To answer your question there, just to give Scott, I think his legacy will be corruption. Corruption, criminality. Surely he's broken all sorts of records in that. I can't think of any other Prime Minister that has broken. Yeah, debate. That's a perfect phrase. He has debased the office. I watched, and all I could keep thinking is, has he done it yet? It took so long. He never, as you say, he never resigned in his statement. He just said, I think it's time for a new Tory leader. And immediately I called it and said, he's going to run again for leadership, aren't he? And there's some chatter about that. But he might. Well, does he care about laws? Does he care about rules?
I'm confused with that, because there was some talk of that, and then a lot of people were saying, no, it's against the rules. And does that mean was the rules changed then? Because I immediately thought was it 94 or whatever when John Major resigned and stood and ran and won the leadership again. So I presume it must have been changed post that, but I don't know why they would, because it actually was quite beneficial for the Tory party for him to do that.
What, to put up and shut up?
Yeah, when he basically forced the kind of various factions to stop squabbling and unite behind him.
I think the bunch of charlatans that are running as well, they were banging him just 2 weeks ago, were they not? I've seen multiple clips of them saying, "Oh, he's a great prime minister," and then they were using words straight out of the thicket just to throw back again the fact that we're living in a political parody and satire. They were saying, "Oh, he's the right man for the job." Like that. That's a direct quote from an episode of The Thicket. I know because I was binge watching it last week.
I can't possibly comment with quotes in the thick of it because it's probably get booted off the podcast. Never asked to come back. But,
we like swearing.
Oh yes.
I mean,
and it's all, the more creative, the better.
it has been an eventful almost 3 years in office, with kind of like all the shambles surrounding Brexit and the different levels of that with the customs union and common market and the Northern Ireland protocols.
And all it took was a nitty bitty little sex scandal involving the chief whip to boot him out. I mean, we've seen that before. We've seen that recently in the SNP, and that's been in terms with Patrick Grady and folks, and nothing's happened of it.
I think it's definitely been like the straw that broke the camel's back with Boris, because there was so many things. It was just
there was an interesting wee snippet,
scandal upon scandal.
Yeah, there was an interesting wee snippet that was sort of came out in the liaison committee where he admitted to meeting the Russian Lebedev. Did I say that right?
Yes.
When he was in the foreign office. I really think his legacy is corruption and just complete chaos. Imagine what it must be like in Whitehall just now, what is happening in all the offices and what everything. It must be super high anxiety. They must be stressed out their nut. I don't think that it is going to get better. I think really the only way it can get better is if we just suddenly go right independence referendum tomorrow, or even better, just independence. Just straight to independence.
Right, so it's your problem now. Bye.
I was just going to say, I was actually really surprised when it eventually happened. I was just thought, nothing in air is going to make him quit. But again, a bit like Trump. Well, he's quit as Tory leader, which is going to lead to him not being Prime Minister, I'm sure. I'm sure it's going to happen. I honestly thought it was going to cause a huge constitutional crisis because he was just going to refuse to resign, even if he lost his majority, even if he lost the support of his party. And then, Britain's unwritten constitution, what are the various mechanisms for getting rid of the Prime Minister then? Well, the Queen would need to sack him, which then creates...
another constitution.
They would be terrified to do because it would create its own set of problems and issues and crises. And I was kind of interested to see where it was going to go. And then he let me down by actually resigning. And then I know he's saying he's not actually resigned, but he's going to happen.
Right. Apart from Boris Johnson being the potential next Tory leader, which I still think is a possibility, who's your money on?
Well, we'll talk about that next. Then I can give you a
sorry,
full list.
I keep skipping the topics.
Well,
I'm sorry.
we'll talk about the two of them because they kind of feed into each other. So we have 11 announced candidates, unless one's announced in the last couple of hours, which is possible because I first made up this agenda and we had 9 candidates, and 24 hours later there was another 2. So at the moment,
time of recording, who we got?
11 announced candidates, and in order of their odds, according to the Paddy Power, the most likely is Rishi Sunak at 1388, followed by Penny Mordaunt at 3-1, then Liz Truss at 5-1, Tom Tugendhat, I don't know if I'm saying that right, 91, Jeremy Hunt also at 91, Nadeem Zahawi at 14-1, Najib Javid at 16-1, Kemi Badnoch at 16-1, Suella Braverman 20-1, Grant Shapps at 50-1, and Raymond Chishti, who is so unknown, Paddy Power didn't even have odds for him. And there's a Westminster election due in the next 18 months. So one of these people will likely be the Prime Minister going into that election.
Well, there might also be another announcement. I mean, for the one that I'm thinking of is Priti Patel, the current Home Secretary, who...
There's been rumours, yeah. But at the moment, I think we should focus on the announced candidates because I think 11's enough to discuss.
Okay, who's the least? Who would be the least terrible? Who would be that, or who would be actually one for maximum chaos?
See, that's the thing that I've been struggling with, because in normal political times, if we can ever remember when that was, you would always say, well, you want the worst possible because then they'll lose the election. But given we've experienced so many poor prime ministers now and people who are clearly no cut out or competent for the job,
we've already had the peak banter candidate, and he's just left.
Well, that's the thing. You realise that politics is a serious business, and maybe it's a bit scary having an idiot in charge of the country. So I'm caught between that. Do you want somebody that's competent that will maybe like not get 180,000 people killed in a pandemic, or do you want somebody who will be rubbish and lose the election? And it's finding that kind of middle ground. And there's a few of these people that...
Ultimately, I mean, if you look at the list of people, these are all people that have 100% back. What's it, 150,000, the 180,000 people killed by COVID, the strategy therein, not hardly any of them raised a single moment of difference with the current policy. I mean, it's weird. It's
the only one that I think could make an argument and be believable as a sort of non-Boris candidate is maybe Jeremy Hunt.
Yeah.
The rest of them are absolutely...
He's a rank outsider as well, 51.
No, 91 years.
Oh, 91, sorry. Who was 51? Sharps?
He might be the best choice, actually, because...
Yeah.
I mean, Jeremy Hunt was previously the health secretary, was he not? Back in
he was despised.
He was generally despised, I know. He took after what's Andrew Lonsley, who instigated another wave of privatisations in the NHS.
I don't want any of them as Prime Minister. I think they're all awful,
none of us want...
Except maybe the unknown guy, because I don't know anything he said.
Except in this great democracy, we don't get a choice, apparently.
Exactly. But if you look at even, I don't know, who the Tories themselves are calling a progressive firebrand conservative, the Suella Braverman. She's terrifying. See if you go and listen to what she's like, a mini Priti Patel, in the sense that she doesn't care about the people. Like, she was talking about universal credits as if, oh, that's a wonderful thing. We need more of that. We need some more austerity measures put in the poorest in society who need to rely on fucking benefits because they're not getting a living wage. Like, I feel it's really convoluted evil, in my opinion. Like, I'm no holding back in this anymore. We need to be brutally honest about the people who are in power in the United Kingdom, and it is terrifying. See, if you're a minority person, you might get sent to Rwanda. If you're, I just said a minority person. I'm going to have to cut that right.
No, a minority person. You said it. Come on.
If you're a refugee, a minority
person. What's wrong with my brain? It's actually melted. If you are a vulnerable person, or if you are a refugee, if you're disabled, if you are unemployed, if you are from maybe you're an asylum seeker trying to get here in this country, your rights are under attack for this government. I can't be vocal enough in my opposition to the United Kingdom as an institution. It's ridiculous. And we're sitting here discussing who's going to be the next best, worst leader. Like, what's the best, worst case scenario that's going to come out of this? That's our politics, right? Aye, that's our politics right now. I think
and even then, it's
Liz
kind of
Truss would be a wonderful Prime Minister. I don't know why none of you are even talking about her.
Because we've seen what she's like.
It's like, but there are so many banter candidates. It's like difficult to know who to focus on. You know, Liz Truss. Well, she has been mentioned, and I thought, oh my God, and everybody was joking how ridiculous that would be. And I suddenly thought, oh no, what if she'd win? And I think the last 6 or 7 years in the UK has taught us that we can't take anything for granted.
Exactly.
If she runs, she'll end up winning. And my God, could you imagine Prime Minister Doris? Jesus.
I've been looking at the online blowback, of the various candidates and their online launches. You've seen Ready for Rishi and his kind of his video. It was kind of or somebody was Penny Mordaunt did Mordaunt. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. But Penny Mordaunt's video. Somebody's tied the imagery within that to a Little Britain Tom Baker introduction, and it marries perfectly. It's kind of like,
it was great.
Britain.
See the video Rishi Sunak done? I was listening to LBC radio. I never listened to that, but it was just on, and I was listening. And somebody had called up to say it was a rip-off of a Neil Diamond thing. Is that, I don't know, Adam, is that true? Did you see it? Like, apparently the whole speech he gave about his father coming is an absolute rip-off of something Neil Diamond did in a concert. I don't know, listeners, if you're musically inclined,
maybe you're in it for a day.
Maybe.
I mean, Penny Mordaunt, when I was reading about her, apparently she's a dare said cock in Parliament. She was dared to do it, so she made a big speech about eggs or farming or something and kept saying cock, and that was all because somebody had dared her. So she seems like a very serious person to be in charge of the country.
Yet another Bander candidate.
I done that in my early 20s in a call centre with my pals, where you would dare each other to try and get a word in your conversation. And I'd always be like, say helicopter.
So thinking back to you in your 20s, did you feel you would be a good Prime Minister?
No, not at all. I wasn't interested in politics in any way, shape or form at that age, to be honest. I wish I was. I'd have been there smashing. I could have got right in the Tory party. I could have been a Tory Prime Leadership contest candidate by now.
If you just had some kind of brain injury that removed your conscience and you would have been fine.
It's quite ableist.
Penny Mordaunt, she actually does seem quite competent. So she was the one that kind of scared me, like, in terms of she actually might be quite, I don't want to use the word good in terms of Tory Prime Minister, but she might know what she's doing, and that could be just as scary as some vicious idiot that might get elected. Even though she does sound like a Death Eater to Harry Potter.
Because once they've got their foot in the door, it's like they're all going to line up behind them regardless for at least a couple of months.
I mean, the next general election is so close that they would. I don't know what they would need to do for the Tories to turn on them before that. I don't know, maybe be nice. Maybe
is it a poison chalice? Like, just since you mentioned Harry Potter, boo. But is Tory leadership, is being the next PM is it a poison chalice? Like, is the person who's going to take it? What's in it for them?
Yeah, maybe when you look at how short the last few prime ministers have lasted, you could make that argument. But also, some of these people are such right-wing loons, never in their wildest dreams, under normal circumstances, would they be in this situation. I think these are people who, going back 20 years ago, would have been stuck in the back benches shouting at the grown-ups in the Tory party before they all disappeared.
So who's competent but evil? Jeremy Hunt,
Penny
Priti Patel's got to be in there. I think she's very competently evil. I know she's not announced yet, but
I know
she's in that category.
Yeah, the ones who can get terrible things done.
Mm-hmm.
I think Grant Shapps might be the best one for the point of view of, I don't think he's particularly incompetent or obviously incompetent like a few other ones, but he does come across very smarmy, which I think will make him unlikable.
Well, so, we had the David Cameron and George Osborne, the pair of Legionist horrors for 5 years.
He gives me that sort of vibe. Will they completely destroy everything by incompetence, but people see through them and not be duped by them, hopefully.
Have we got any John Major type candidates like that are just sort of middleist?
I don't think you get them anywhere. I think the closest to Jeremy Hunt
they don't exist.
who would have been probably a rabid right winger in the 90s sort of major government. But he is now the voice of reason.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was reading his statement on it, and it was like, can't believe John Major's like harking back to the good old days of John Major.
Yeah, I mean, I remember thinking that as well. It was like, John Major seems like bloody closer to Jeremy Corbyn these days than half of the people will be the Tory leader.
That is a terrifying thing to say. That's a terrifying thing to say out loud. I mean, okay. I actually looked at the inequality stats over the past. If you look at the Gini coefficient in Britain over the past 40 years, his was the last government where inequality, as in the gap between the richest and the poorest, actually declined. It was weird. It's kind of like, I mean, what's it? Even what's his face? Tony Blair's government was. They were intent. I mean, as Darth, what's his face? Who's the evil Sith Lord fellow?
Palpatine.
What's it? Mandelson. Okay, even Lord Mandelson.
All right.
He said.
You meant a real life Sith Lord? We were talking about Star Wars ones.
I was thinking about actual, like an actual real life Dark Lord Mandelson, and his initial pitch for New Labour to the very well off was that we're intensely relaxed about people getting filthy rich. And yeah, it was pretty much if you had property, if you were well off, that was a right time for you to increase your wealth. So social inequality, as in the gap between the richest and the poorest, was greatly exploded under Tony Blair. So there was redistribution that happened, but not. It was, when the Tories eventually got back in power, it was like all the programs that were keeping the poorest away from destitution started getting shot away, leaving us with the most unequal government in living memory.
Lowest pension in Europe and some of the most shoddy welfare state known to man. Privatisation of the NHS in England and Wales, and just really, downfall of society as we know it. It's great, isn't it? It's happy.
Since we're talking about the next Prime Minister, who none of us will get a chance to vote for or against.
Exactly.
I realised this stat, and it was so ludicrous to me that I actually checked it with people because I thought, this can't be right. In my lifetime, when I'm 40, and the only Prime Minister that came into office through a general election winning a majority was Tony Blair.
Yeah.
Thatcher was already in power. Major came in between elections after they took out Thatcher.
He won an absolute landslide. I mean, he won the largest number of Tory votes ever.
Yeah, but what I mean is becoming Prime Minister for the first time. When he won that election, he was already
incoming.
Yeah. The closest after that, Tony Blair is the only one that won the majority. The closest after that is David Cameron, who at least won an election to become Prime Minister, but didn't even win a majority.
No, he did. He won an outright majority in 2015.
Yeah, but what I mean, to become Prime Minister, he didn't win a majority.
Okay.
It was a coalition for the first 5 years. So, I mean, we dictate to other countries around the world about democracy. And in 40 years...
is thoroughly lumping in the shape.
We've had one Prime Minister that's come in the sort of way that is supposed to happen by winning a majority of seats at an election. Every other one have come in through, backroom dealing and, political assassination of their predecessor.
I was thinking about this just as a throwback to independence, because that's obviously the solution to this entire mess. Do you mind the West Lothian question? You mind that was it?
Yep.
Yeah, Tandale.
And then they done the English votes for English laws to sort of evil.
How do you come up with something and get the initials to make an English refer to it as evil? That's something that your opposition should do. Evil.
And that was how they addressed the democratic deficit. It's insane. Like the next Prime Minister, whoever it may be, I kind of want it to be Liz Truss, just because the memes and the gifts are going to be epic. But also, that'll help independence. Like that's for me, that's going to help independence. If it's
Does
Prime Minister
Boris
Liz
Johnson
Truss.
leaving? Does Boris Johnson leaving damage independence?
No.
Okay, then I'm not sure your argument really follows, because it's not so much the person that's in charge of this, the person in number 10. It's the whole fucking rotten system that
But that's what I mean.
delivered these horrible people in the first place.
That's what I mean, because having Liz Truss sort of demonstrates how ridiculous it all is, that it's not really you're not really there on your merit, really, because obviously she's a fucking idiot. I don't really like to talk down other women, but really that I don't understand how she's got to that level of seniority in the Tory party in the first place. I don't know how that occurred. Where do any of you know? Was it it through some sort of excellence? Was it?
You just look at. I mean, we seem to be in a situation where political systems are throwing up the worst and the most incompetent people and making them leaders. Look at 2016 presidential election, where you'd probably two of the most despised people in the country were the choice that were presented to the American public. So I mean, this is not just like limited to the kind of peculiarities of the Westminster system. Like Western democracies seem to be hitting a bit of a bump in the road that way. That
South America will show us the way.
It's not the best of the best that are rising to the top. It seems to be the worst.
Was that sarcastic, Scott? Because they've got Bolsonaro.
That's true.
The
other bits.
But even so, I mean, we've seen lots of other bits, but little agents of popular resistance actually leading to socialists getting power.
Maybe it's just big, massive democracies.
Well, democracies that are too large and unrepresented people they purport to serve.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing. The mystery candidate Raymond Chishti.
Yeah.
Who?
Does anybody know anything about him?
I looked up his Wikipedia page. Now, this might not be true because I don't know whether somebody else has edited his Wikipedia page. But according to that, he's a former Labour councillor.
Oh.
He's what?
Infiltrator.
He was a Labour parliamentary candidate and a Labour councillor back in 2003, I think. Would that be a first? A Tory MP that was previously a Labour member?
No.
No, it's been others.
Back at the war. What's his name? Jeannie will shout at me because Jeannie
Winston
talks
Churchill.
about. Was he no? He was a Liberal.
He was a Liberal.
Yeah, he was Liberal and he switched.
I don't think there's ever been Labour to Tory that's made it to Prime Minister, surely.
That's Google worthy.
I mean, it might be nonsense. Maybe somebody just went onto his Wikipedia page and messed about with it because nobody knows who he is and nobody would be able to refute it.
But it's the kind of the scratch and sniff test. It's kind of like
I think he has one endorsement from an MP, and I presume it's him. So I don't know if he's just doing it for a dare. Maybe he's friends with the same people as Penny Mordaunt. Like, go and put your name forward, I dare you. Rishi Sunak as well. That was another interesting fact. Somebody dug up the fact that he had registered his leadership campaign website in December.
Yeah, he was going at the height of Partygate. He was going to try and overthrow the PM.
Yep.
Did you see the video of his billionaire wife bringing out tea to the journalists?
Yes. Totally
replicating what Boris done back in the day. Don't trust a Tory. Don't trust billionaire Tories.
Take tea from them.
Yeah, don't take a tea.
It's property theft.
Hey. A wee Engels joke there.
Oh, I thought it was Boston Tea Party. I was going to say. No taxation without representation.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
We haven't even really covered the other. We've got the horse stable guy. Sorry, what's his name? Nadeem Zahawi, who claimed heating for his stables.
Yeah, as you do. I mean,
as you fucking
can't
do,
have
yes.
cold ponies.
And couldn't possibly tell you how wealthy he was because it'd probably be a lie. What?
It's also baffling that a government who is a lot of their whole history has been based around hammering immigrants and demonising them and making its life as hard as possible. And in the leadership, there's a lot of them who are either immigrants themselves or children of immigrants. It's baffling. I mean, Nadeem Zahawi was born in Baghdad, and there'll be a lot of people very similar to him who would have been getting shipped off to Rwanda, like through the government's policy, and I just can't get my head around that. It does not. It defies logic.
These rules do not apply if you're filthy rich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
End of. Sorry.
Do we know how rich he was when he left Baghdad?
Alas, I don't think so. But Rishi Sunak is guilty of he had US green card for 18 months when he was the Chancellor.
That's right.
Yeah.
That hurt him. That is, at one point this would have been a coronation for Sunak.
Mm-hmm.
But that's hurt him, and the fact that he's still the favourite, but so many other candidates have come in that they obviously fancy their chances.
I've seen some folks saying that Rishi Sunak is the sensible choice for the Conservatives. A handsome man. It's weird.
A photogenic Prime Minister. I mean,
that's what they were saying. That's what they were saying.
We've already seen the BBC doing that cartoon of Rishi Sunak as Superman. Generously doling out. It was pretty full on when early on in the COVID. The entire swathe of them are all promising huge tax cuts.
Yeah.
I don't know if the last couple sort of a contest bear this out, but traditionally there was always a belief that the front runner would not get the job, going away back again to the 90s. And even Thatcher was the outsider when she ran the leadership. So that would count against Sunak. So I do wonder, because it's only a matter of weeks ago that you would have said he would have been a shoe-in for it, but I don't think so now.
I think I put my money on Sunak, if nothing else.
Paddy Power 13-8.
Yeah,
what does that mean?
It's not free money. I mean, if you put down £8, you win £13. So you get back to 13 quid.
Right.
Plus your original weight.
I mean, it's not free money, but if I was a gambling man, I would probably put my money on Sunak.
It's definitely no free money if he becomes Chancellor.
I think it's wide open.
Okay, so
I ruined my joke if he became Prime Minister, because he's promising all these tax cuts to his pals. So,
well, they are all make all kinds of promises, but I think we've seen the example of Keir Starmer, that what you promise in a leadership campaign and how you actually then proceed after that can be very different things.
Well, the tax cuts that have been promised, it cost about 300 billion. And the ones that Zahawi has promised, it's about 300 billion pounds, which is more than the cost of the entirety of the Ministry of Defence. How the hell, and realistically, is he going to pay for any of that? It's nonsense, absolute gibberish.
On that note, we're going to have to end it. Scott, thanks for joining us. You've been a wonderful
You're very welcome,
guest.
friends.
Deborah, always a pleasure. Thank you again for the listening, everybody out there. I've been your host, David McClement. This has been Holyrude Ungagged. Check out all our podcasts at leftungagged.org. You can also find written articles there. Also find our North American-based podcast, World Beat with George Collins, where he interviews scholars, activists and writers about the state of the world. You can also catch up with our monthly Talking Sense podcast with Kat and Erin. And if you want to talk to us, tweet us at _ungagged, #HolyrudeUngagged, or email us at ungaggedleft@gmail.com and put Holyrude Ungagged in the subject line. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please give us 5 stars on whatever platform you use. Deborah, Scott, thanks again. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Well done, everyone.
Nice